I'd like to show you a little bit today about how to use Google Forms to create a survey. First of all, enter into your Google Forms area and you can create a new survey. You can start a new form. So here we've got the plus sign where it says blank. So let's click on that and we can start creating a survey right away. Notice how it has a title here, untitled form, and then some sort of form description. So we can choose to put a title in here. This could be our very first page. And we could just click on this and type in, "Welcome to my survey." Here, where it says form description, we can go ahead and type in our introduction, which should include the aspects that we've discussed in class. A little bit about the topic or the purpose of the survey, as well as the length of time anticipated to complete the survey, the fact that this is a confidential survey and all of the responses will be anonymous and private, and certainly some sort of form of thank you to the respondents to express our gratitude for their cooperation. So I'm just typing the word intro here, but obviously you're going to put in your own introduction. Here, if we click on Untitled Question, we can see over here a drop-down box where we can select the type of question that we're interested in using. Multiple choice is one type of question. In this scenario, you can only choose one answer. But if you wanted to allow a multiple answer type of multiple choice question, you can select check boxes instead. I would recommend against using drop-down for any purposes. It just adds a click to the respondent's requirements. So choose one of those, and if you're interested, you could do other types of scales, a linear scale, and that might be something, if I click that, where 1 means very dissatisfied, and 5 could mean very satisfied. So you're going to label each of the ends of this scale, and then you're going to have some sort of question that you put in. So how satisfied were you with the service at Bank ABC? So that's an example of a linear scale. So let's just take that out and change back to a multiple choice question. I can also put in options and a question right here. So if I click on Untitled Question, I can say, which of the following brands, if any, do you use on a regular basis? Not the best question necessarily. Something like this, I might have said something, which have you used within the past year? Or which have you used within the past week? But here I'm just going after general use. We don't know how they interpret regular basis. That's why I say it's not the best question ever. But let's just say we have some sort of question in here and we want to add our options. So we would put in brand A, and then we can add an option, brand B, and so forth. Let's say we had a whole list, and then we want to add other, which we can do there. All right. Now, we can make it a required answer, but I tend not to do that unless it's either a very, very important question, or perhaps it's a question from which I need to decide where to branch them next. Maybe they go on to the next question if they said brand A, but any of the other brands, they may have to go to a different question. So we'll put our logic in later, but for now, let's just say that it's not required. We can always change that. So we want to add the next question. We can hover here over plus, you can see add question. So let's do that. We can also change the page that the question is on. So if you're keeping on adding questions just like this by adding the plus, all of these questions will appear on the same page in the survey. So the respondents will be able to see all of these questions on their screen. So we could have blah, blah, blah in our question, more options. Maybe I might choose to do this as a checkbox this time. So you can see the circles change to squares. This is a convention in online surveys. A circle usually means you can only pick one, and a square means you can pick as many as apply. So we could have A, an option B, C, D, and let's say we have other. And notice if I want to add another option for none, it doesn't go after other. It gets flipped into that section before other. So I'm forced to say none before other, one of the little issues with Google Forms. Anyway, so we have none and other. Again, I can decide whether this is a required question or not by just toggling this back and forth. Just curious what that was, now I know. All right, nothing like experimenting while you're going along. So now I'm going to decide to provide a new page for the respondents. Okay, here we go. This is now a new section. So I've got section 1, and you see now it says section 1 of 2. Section 2, I can choose to title this or not. And since I'm not, I'm just going to remove any of the text here. And now I'm going to add a question. So I might have some other question. And I'm going to have some other options. Now we could make this anything we want. We've taken a look at linear scale. Let's take a look at a multiple choice grid. What would that look like? So this kind of grid might be something where you're rating questions. So rate each of the following attributes based on how satisfied you were using scale. Oops. Please enter one answer for each item. Okay. So our rows are going to contain the items. Maybe we're getting them to rate service or quality or convenient hours. Professionalism. Something like that. Anyway, you can choose whatever it is that you are rating. And then for our columns, we're going to have levels of satisfaction. Generally, I go from left to right or low to high when it comes to satisfaction. So I will actually label each of the points in my scale. Very dissatisfied. Somewhat dissatisfied. Neutral. Somewhat satisfied. And very satisfied. And then we might say something like not applicable. But in this case, I'm just going to leave it and I'm going to make people say what they really mean here. For some reason it seems to have done that. Okay, so here we have a question. And we're going to require a response in each row. Let's put that on. So what happens when the respondent is filling this out? If they've missed quality, for example, and they try to go on to the next question, a little warning sign will come up and say, hello, you forgot to fill in quality. So it's always a good idea to have that function in there. Hopefully it doesn't harass the respondents. Maybe they just don't feel like filling in, but here we're going to encourage them to do that for every round. So that's how you create a multiple choice grid. I usually use that type of grid because I'm only asking one answer per row. The checkbox grid is a more unusual scenario where you're asking them to check as many as apply, and that's not very common a question. So chances are, if you're using a matrix, it's going to just be a multiple choice grid. Okay, so if I decided I've forgotten to add a question in section 1, I can go back in there. It's very easy, just click in there, and then I can just add another question here. And I can say, when was the last time you purchased XYZ? And then let's have a multiple choice where they can only answer one. And we can say, within the past week, within the past 2 to 4 weeks. Since a month is over 4 weeks, we can say within the past, say 1 to 2 months. And then more than 2 months ago. And finally, don't remember. All right. So we can go back in and add questions as we wish into a section. And we can also create another section. Let's say we have some demographics. And here I might say just a few more questions. And we also might say, because these are demographic questions that are a little more sensitive, we'll remind the respondents that we are keeping all of their responses confidential. So please recall that all your answers will be kept confidential. Okay, and then we can add a question. Let's say it is, please indicate your age. And then we can have age in years. So we have under 19 years. And 19 to 35 years, 36 to 50 years, and over 50 years. I probably have more categories than just this, but this is what we'll work with. And then we also want to give, especially with confidential types of demographic or sensitive questions, prefer not to say. All right. All right. Then we have another section where we're going to say, whoops, thank you very much for your help. We appreciate your cooperation. Good enough. So now we have a thank you page here. We could have actually created a special section for our intro page if we wanted to. So we could say, mouse is acting up here. We could delete a section if we want to. We can duplicate the section. We can go to a question and throw it out. So what I'm going to do, just to try this, let's duplicate the section. So now you see section 1 of 5, and you'll see that happens here. And what I can do here is simply dump this in the garbage. All right, so we've got our intro, and I'm going to take this out. And I'm going to take this out too. So now it just gets right into the survey. We could say something like this. Let's get started. And there we go. So what does this look like? Let's find out. So we've got a lovely little survey using different kinds of questions. And here we have various things that we can do up here. We can move the whole thing to the trash, which we certainly don't want to do. Let's title the form. Let's not call it Welcome to My Survey, but we'll just say Test Survey. So now we know what this is. If we were to go back into our menu, we can now see our survey here, Test Survey. We can click on that, and here we are again. So we've got some settings here. You can see. We can play around with the color palette. Right here it's purple. I'm going to leave it because, gee, I like purple. Now, that little eye, did you see if I click that? We can see what the survey looks like. Welcome to my survey. It's confidential, etc., etc. It'll take you 5 minutes, etc., etc. And we say next. We can see the next page. So you have to pay, as the respondent, you have to click on next, and you get to the next section. Here it is, and so forth, and so forth. Whoops, I didn't fill something in here, and it requires one response per row. So this is just that thing, so I'd have to make sure I fill it in to be able to go ahead. So that's working. And here we are at our demographics. Next, and then we submit. Okay, so we can do that. Notice that this is going to be submitted. So if you wanted to, you're going to maybe have to go back and make sure that you erase any test surveys that you've tried. Okay, so that's how you can go ahead and figure this out. So I'm going to hit that edit icon, the pencil, because now I want to add some logic to it. So what would happen here if they have purchased within the last week or 2 to 4 weeks, 1 to 2 months? Great. But if they've purchased it more than 2 months ago or they don't remember, I want them to just go straight to the demographics. So I'm going to click anywhere in this area. You can see I'm now into the edit mode for this question. And I can say where to go. So I can remove it altogether. I can add an image if I want to, or I can add logic. So let's go down here. I can also shuffle the option order, which is kind of a handy thing if you want to randomize things. Or here, what I really wanted to do is to go to a section based on the answer. So I'm going to click on that. Now that that's there, you see all of these popped up. They're all going to send me to the next section just by default, but I can change that. So yes, I want to go to the next section unless it is more than 2 months ago. So here I can hit the drop down and I can make them go to section, let's say 4, where I've put demographics. Now obviously I've only put the one age question there, but that's fine. So maybe I just want to skip them over this matrix question, and I could just tell them that I want to go to, or I could tell the programming that I want the respondents to go directly to section 4. So that's going to go to section 4, and let's make the next one also section 4. Okay, and let's make this a required question. Whoops. So we click on that. So now they have to answer here, and then they'll be filtered into the correct area. So when you have a question that has logic in it, I would recommend that you do make it a required question. So let's see if that works. Again, we can see how the survey preview looks. So let's go in there. Here's my welcome. Next. I use brand A and AABC. Let's make myself skip right to demographics. Does this work? More than 2 months ago. Next. Ta-da. Here we are. I am magically in my demographics section. I'm going to change my response, see if don't remember works. Next. Good. It worked again. Now, if I say within the past week, here I am to my matrix question. And then that filter goes, can't go anywhere without filling that out. And here I am. And I can go to the end and my thank you page. So that's basically how you set up your survey. I will prepare another mini lecture on how to look at your results, and I'll show you what happens when you have all of your results populated. But for now, that's it. I hope that was helpful for you to have a quick lesson on how to create your Google Forms survey.